Hi guys, Elle here. It's been a little while since I've done a proper tarot deck review, and I have kind of a really cool one for you today. It is the Medieval Scapini Tarot by Luigi Scapini. So I'm going to be a bit of a bad tarot reviewer today because I actually do not have the box or the little white book that this deck came with. This is a separate book that you can buy separately. It is not. It's actually written by Ronald Decker, but it's not. It's a commentary basically on the Medieval Scapini Tarot, and we'll talk lots more about it in a sec. As you guys may well know, when it comes to this deck, it's been around for a really, really long time. It was originally published in, what was it, like 1988, I believe. And it's still very readily available today, but there have been several different sort of editions, different years in which it was published, in which the deck looks kind of different. Now the artwork hasn't changed at all over the years, no matter which edition of this deck you get. The artwork, the images are all exactly the same. It just comes down to different cardstock. It comes down to certain little misprints throughout the years with different editions, and also slightly different colorations because of the different printing. I could spend an entire hour talking about all the different editions and what you find in each one. I really don't want to do that. There's so much really, really cool stuff to talk about when it comes to this deck. What I am going to do, though, is put a few links down below to like Eclectic or something, where they talk about all the different editions and what you'll find with depending on what year you get your deck from. And all that stuff, and you guys can sort of do your own research. But the reason, anyway, that I do not have the box and the little white book and everything is because I specifically sought out an edition of this deck that didn't have that heavy lamination on it. I believe it's like the decks that were printed, don't quote me here, but I think the ones like after 2007 maybe that have this sort of a plasticky finish to it, like a little bit of a heavy lamination. And I am certainly not in general opposed to laminated cards at all, but there was something about this deck specifically, this old feel medieval style tarot deck that I just, given the option, you know, would prefer to not have that heavy lamination on it, and that is what I found here. So I did get mine used, and I'm actually not 100% sure even what year my deck is, but it's beautiful, and I'll show you guys what this one looks like. I did get it on eBay maybe 8 or 9 years ago even now, something like that. So real quick, before I break out my deck here, there's one thing that I want to say before we get started about this deck. There's actually is a lot of information on this deck out there. It's fairly popular. It's been available for a really long time. But one of the reasons I'm so excited to talk about it today is because I think there is quite a bit of misinformation out there on this deck, and it's one of the things that turned me off to this deck at first. I was completely enamored with his style of artwork. I'm a huge fan of Luigi Scapini's artwork and all his tarot decks, but I stayed away from him and this deck specifically for a while because I had read reviews and seen video reviews and things like that, where they talk about this deck and they say things like, you know, he gets, usually when they're talking about the minor arcana, right? But he'll be like, oh, he really gets it for the most part. He's spot on. And then there's, you know, a handful of cards here where he just like goes off on his own direction or does his own thing artistically in several of the cards, and it makes it really hard to read. Okay, so you hear things like that, right? And you're like, oh, that kind of sucks, you know? I would like my card, the images on my cards to be correct. So I think what's sort of happening here is a lot of people who I don't know, like live in like maybe a bit of a Rider-Waite-Smith land, come to this deck expecting it to be like that for some reason. And that's just not the intention with this deck. It appears to me, and from what Ronald Decker also has to say in his book, but I certainly noticed it the first time I flipped through this deck of cards, that the minor arcana is very much based on like Atella minors. That's all it is. And of course, you will see tons and tons of similarities between Rider-Waite-Smith minor arcana meanings and between these older Atella-like or just pre-Rider-Waite-Smith ways of looking at the minor arcana. It's very similar to the kind of stuff that you find in Christine Payne Towler's Tarot of the Holy Light. It's very similar to the things you find in Paul Hewson's Dame Fortune's Wheel Tarot, which hopefully will be a deck that I'll be reviewing very, very soon, especially since we're sort of already on the Atella Minors subject here. So that being said, I think that even if you live in Rider-Waite-Smith world, and there's nothing wrong with that, you will still, for the most part, be able to get down with this deck. And if you're interested in expanding your meaning or learning more about these different ways of interpreting or looking at the minor arcana, this would be a freaking great place to start. Even this book, even if you're not interested, like I said, I'll show you guys the book in a second, but even if you're not interested in the deck, this book is a great way to jump into that kind of stuff, along with his other book. Here, I did grab it. Here, this is The Esoteric Tarot, Ancient Sources Rediscovered in Hermeticism and Kabbalah by Ronald Decker. There you go, I only have my digital version here. But that's a great place to begin looking into, the history of tarot, and especially Atella minors. Also, Paul Hewson's book, I think, is a fantastic place to go. There it is, Mystical Origins of the Tarot by Paul Hewson. Let me pull it up big. There we go. So yeah, while neither of these books are specifically just about Atella or Pappas or all the... I just group it all together into like one pre-Rider-Waite-Smith world. Sorry, guys, but you could sort of look at it like that. It's almost like these original Atella sources, you could say, or Atella meanings, have just been explained and expanded upon. All the way up to the present, really. So yeah, while these books aren't specifically about that, I think that they would be a fantastic place to jump in and start learning. Like, look, literally, he talks about, both books really do this. This is a page out of Paul Hewson's book, but literally, he gives, I think this is the King of Coins or something, and he gives the Mathers interpretation, the Waite, the Golden Dawn, the Atella, and then just all different different cartomantic interpretations. And of course, he talks a lot about all the different sources throughout history. These are both just, I cannot recommend them highly enough. They're fantastic books. And I, of course, will list all these books down below, at least the Amazon links, and even where you can buy the deck, too. And I'm also going to throw down there a link to Luigi Scapini's website. Now, if you guys are not super familiar with this amazing gentleman, Luigi Scapini, he has actually been involved in, I think, 20 some odd tarot decks over the years. I'm such a bad tarot collector today. This is literally the only Luigi Scapini deck that I actually own, but several of his other decks have been on my wish list forever. And he is also the artist who created or recreated, you could say, the missing cards for both of U.S. Games Visconti decks. He recreated the 4 missing cards from the Piermont Morgan Visconti Sforza Tarot, and also I believe he did the 19 missing cards for the Carriel Visconti. And if the story that sort of comes along with this deck is correct, it was after he recreated these medieval Visconti-style images for that tarot deck. By the way, it wasn't for the Lo Scarabeo version of the Visconti Sforza Tarot that Luigi Scapini did the artwork for. It is only for the U.S. Games version of those decks. But anyway, yeah, if the story is correct, it was after he recreated those cards, he was apparently so inspired by all this medieval tarot work he'd done that he decided to create this deck. fully his own artwork, his own creation, and in that same vein, in that same style of the Visconti Sforza. You know, there's a very, very cool 15th century medieval vibe to this deck. And it's not all this like dark, medieval, scary feeling kind of thing. It is actually really a wonderfully light-hearted, tongue-in-cheek at times, silly, beautiful, and smart deck. And the man, he clearly knows his shit. You know, he did not just go off into his own little artsy-fartsy world and make up images for the cards that don't make any sense. That is not it at all. You know, of course, every tarot artist does that to an extent. It's a work of art, their tarot decks. But he really does, he stays close to this European French school of thought, this way of interpreting the tarot that I just vibe with, I jive with it. It's wonderful. Okay, so I have lots more to say about this deck, and I'm going to try and talk while I show you guys the cards in a second. However, like I said, I don't have the box or the little white book, so, you know, bear with me, I apologize. You know what? Shit, I'm going to put it out there. Actually, if any of you guys out there have, I don't know, an extra copy of the little white book, I would love to get my hands on it. Or if anybody just has it and wouldn't mind maybe taking some pictures of the pages and sending them my way, I would, like, appreciate it to, like, no end. You guys have no idea. Always wanted to get my hands on it. But anyway, this is the book that you can buy actually in a set. You can buy it in a set with the deck, but you can also buy it separately. It's pretty readily available, I believe, still. That is what the front looks like. And this is the back. Art and Arcana provides a thoughtful and well-researched commentary on the medieval Scapini tarot. Ronald Decker guides the reader through the history of tarot while reflecting upon 15th century Italy and the wonderful and sometimes humorous artwork that comprises the lavish deck. Luigi Scapini created a deck that is rich in style and historical attributes. And finally, here is a companion text worthy of partnership with the medieval Scapini tarot. Ronald Decker is an art historian and has written previous tarot books in collaboration with Sir Michael Dumais and Thierry de Paulus. Huge names, I know. But yeah, some of the history that is actually covered in this little book is so wonderful and so invaluable to really, I think, understanding and appreciating every little bit of genius that he put into the medieval Scapini tarot. And he talks about it in the book, but there's references to, of course, Marseille tarot. There's references to medieval thought, medieval philosophy. There's references to the Mantegna tarot all over the place. And then he even manages to pull in things from Golden Dawn and from Rider-Waite Smith. And while I think that Ronald Decker here does lean a little bit more towards pulling all these different things together and pointing out that it's a bit more of a universal kind of a deck. I think, in my opinion, he may go a little far that way. Like, the medieval Scapini tarot, to me, really does feel a little bit more firmly rooted and based in this French school of thought, this European, Attila, Papus, Levi, all that kind of stuff. He even, there's amazing references throughout this deck, you guys, to Oswald Wirth specifically. He even uses color the exact same way that Oswald Wirth talks about, his color correspondences, meaning there's so much amazingness in this deck, and this book really does, though, touch on most of it. So it starts out with talking about a lot about Levi and Wirth up there too, and their astrology and their Kabbalah thoughts on the tarot and the different sources where these things come from even. It's a great intro to tarot history, especially esoteric tarot history. talks about the different ways in which this deck and other tarot decks even, but specifically this deck, the Medieval Scapini, makes reference to the different Hebrew associations and the different schools of thought there. Although I feel like I see my own French school represented more than anything else, he really does make reference to, throughout the cards, to Golden Dawn associations also. This deck actually, it really is kind of a tarot geek's tarot deck, you know, and a tarot enthusiast's tarot deck. I'll show you guys when we go through in a sec too, all the references to other tarot decks and tarot history, and it's just chock full of goodies. Here he's got Oswald Worth's correspondences table, the Hebrew letters, the tarot card, and the constellations associated, all that kind of stuff he goes through. Here's quite a bit about Attila. It's such a good book. Even if you don't give a shit about this deck, it's really a great book. Here it talks about Papus, and the court cards, the Tetragrammaton. And then he gets into Golden Dawn and Rider-Waite-Smith some more. And then really the bulk of the book, or maybe just over half of the book here, is devoted to a commentary on each of the cards. Now, excuse me, this is not a book written by the artist, so he does not literally go through and tell you, you know, what he means to portray on the cards. This is somebody else. This is Ronald Decker looking at the cards going, I see this, you know, and that's okay. This is not meant to be a little white book. And I still think that it is super, super invaluable to have, especially because from what I've heard of the little white book that comes with this deck, it's just that, you know, it's a little white book. There's not a ton of information in it anyway. This is really just a great thing to have on hand to go with this deck. So here under the picture of the Fool, you have Levi's Association, you have the Golden Dawn Hebrew Association, you have some keywords, you have the constellation. For the minors, actually, he gives you a little bit more for each card, and I love what he has here. Let's pick one. There we go. Oh, did you guys just see that? A page of my book just went flying out. Oh my god, that just broke my heart. Son of a bitch. Oh, I hope I'm not missing any more pages. Anyway, for, what is this? This is like the Knight of Cups. You have an image of the card. Everything is black and white in here, though. And then underneath here, the very first thing he gives you is the Attila meaning, which I find so much in common with for this one, because it's a court card. I think he gives you the Papus, he gives you the Waite, and he gives you like a possible Scapini interpretation, and then a reverse meaning. Plus, you get this whole commentary on the side here talking about the card. It's good, you guys. It's such a good book. Really, really, really well done. Okay, I don't want to take forever looking at the book. I really, really want to break into these cards and show you how gorgeous. That's how I keep it, by the way. I have a little crystal on there. Okay, guys, so this is what the back of the cards look like. Like I said, I'm not sure what year mine actually is, but it is one of the slightly older ones where it doesn't have that heavy lamination. You can see they're kind of matte looking. Now the card backs and the card fronts are not this pure white. They have this amazing aged beigey, slightly yellowy sort of a look to them, so they look rather old right off the bat. And as you can see here when the light reflects, this gold metallic sort of a color is present on the fronts of all the cards. They're the entirety of the backdrop on the majors and the court cards, and then it's still mixed in there on like all the minor cards also. I have heard that different editions you get a little bit more of an embossed feel maybe to it, and that it does look a little bit less metallic gold on some of the laminated decks maybe, but I'm very happy with the way that mine looks. It's so beautiful. I think that even the card backs here are so appropriate and so gorgeous. It's got this great simple feel. It's more or less fully reversible. If you stare at it for ages and ages like I have, you can tell just because of certain areas of lightness and darkness when it is upright, when it is reversed. I know this is upright, but yeah, it's nothing that jumps out at you. I also have not edged my deck. I did get it used, and I have handled it for a really long time now, and they've just sort of worn down into this It's still a little bit more white than the fronts and the backs, but it doesn't bother me. I don't think I'm gonna ever touch it. I like it when it's dirty. Okay, so let's just jump right in, and I will continue talking while I show you guys the cards. Okay, there is your beautiful, beautiful Fool. There is, by the way, so much minute detail on these cards. I'm going to try and zoom in for you whenever I can so you can really get a feel of like all the myriad of things going on in the background of these cards. But right off the bat, guys, isn't it cool how much it, like, if you're familiar with any of the Visconti Tarots, how reminiscent these cards are going to be of that style, of that deck. I'm going to try and say the artist's name of the Visconti Tarots, Bonifacio Bembo. I'm sure I butchered it. Can you guys see that little alligator there with the obelisks? Look at all the detail, all the symbolism. And that background is that metallic-y golden color. And the different colored feathers in his hair and his bag. Isn't he gorgeous? But yeah, they're really reminiscent of Bembo's Bembo's work from like the 1400s. And if you didn't see it before, you will definitely see it in the Magician card here. So you can also see on every single card there is a teensy, like guys, it's super, super small. It doesn't bother me at all. Really, really small copyright in the corner of every deck, no matter what year yours was published, no matter what edition you have, it always says copyright 1984, I think. Copyright 1984 US Game Systems. I believe that's just, you know, when the original images were created, 1984. And then, of course, you have your classic Roman numerals up top. And he's pretty much kept, although they're in English, the names is as close to they were in the old decks. The numbering, of course, is returned or restored to normal. It would be more accurate to say. I don't like when people say, "Oh, he changed the name of the high priestess to the popess," or he changed the hierophant to the pope. No, it's much more accurate to say they've been restored or returned to their original position, because this is how they were for hundreds of years before Pamela Goldman Smith and Arthur Edward Waite came along. So yeah, number 2 is the Popess, and number 5, the Hierophant, as we know him, will be called the Pope. But look at that, this card jumps out at me as being one of the most beautiful in the deck, and it also has very, very strong, a very strong Oswald Worth look to it, I think. I love it. Yeah, actually, check that out. Look, over here on her right side, you have that red pillar right there, and that whole pillar is made up of like red flames, and there's a lion at the very top, right next to a little sun that's holding up the veil behind her. And then on the other side here, you have on the blue pillar on her left, you have a little crescent moon there, and this is made up of like water and droplets, and there's a mermaid and a sea serpent right up at the top next to the moon. Oh my god, it's stunning. Look at her book. There's a Kabbalistic tree of life, and that's just a few of the symbols I have chosen to pull out of here. There's so much going on, and it doesn't look busy either. They're just gorgeous. But of course, throughout the entire deck, there's so many like Kabbalah references, alchemical references, you know, just all that stuff, all my favorite stuff. The astrology, the story of initiation, everything is in these cards, you guys. It's really such a smart and powerful deck. Check that out. That's your Empress, number 3. I love how the wings even create this little like halo around her head, and she's still holding her classic eagle shield or insignia there. Right out of the Marseille, right out of the Levy, right out of the Worth. Okay guys, here's number 4, the Emperor. This is actually an amazing card. Look at that, you have him throned on top of, what is this, like the four elements depicted underneath his throne there. I love too, he's chosen to put his little signature in really fun different places on every single card. It's really quite cool. Holding lots of classic things from old Marseille decks. And then check out his face. That is actually like a portrait of, what's his name? Stuart Kaplan, who is, of course, a very famous tarot historian and author and the founder of US Games. How cool is that? That's your emperor, Stuart Kaplan himself. And this one's actually a portrait of someone also. This is number 5, the Pope. Like we said, he's called the Pope. Check out some of the amazing detail. Oh my god. I could talk for an entire hour just about like this card. It's crazy. But actually, the phase, this one's a portrait of someone also. It's Michael Dumet, or Dumet, D-U-M-M-E-T. What did he write? Like a wicked pack of cards, I think he did. All sorts of tarot history stuff. And here is the amazingness that is number 6, the Lover's card. So it looks like he's sort of based this Lover's card, at least in part, on the Lovers from the Cariel Visconti. One of the things, or just some of the things that are really quite beautiful and amazing here is some of the things that this lad is wearing. And Decker talks about this in the book, actually. How the motto inscribed on his hat is I forget what it translates as, but a motto of the Visconti Sforza family or something. And even on the back of his shirt or his cape here is what looks like a fountain, which is apparently, they think it's a heraldic emblem of some sort of the Visconti family also. In the book, he even talks about some really cool Pythagorean ideas that he seems to have incorporated into his card here. The two paths like becoming one create a Y, which is significant as the crossroads of life where choices and decisions are made. He even chose to go and turn this normally we see like a Cupid kind of a thing up here, right? Shooting an arrow. Scapini turned it into a bit of a centaur, like a Sagittarian figure, which just, Golden Dawn stuff can abound in here now. Like it's really wonderful, all the different things that have been pulled into this deck. I really do, in my opinion, think that this deck follows, like I said before, a bit more of this European French tarot tradition. So in him keeping with that, I think that my Hebrew associations, the ones that I follow, because they come from those Levi associations, those Eliphas Levi associations, work really, really perfectly with this deck, although he doesn't have them listed anywhere on here. I think if I went back and were to show you guys the Magician card again, you could clearly see how Aleph is sort of illustrated in there. And I think he's got nice little nods and references to the fact that they do follow those kind of associations. But I think if you are, a Golden Dawn person, or you associate it with the English school of thought, that you could very, very easily work within this system also, because it lends itself to that system really, really well too. He certainly was not ignorant of other ideas and Rider-Waite-Smith style things, Golden Dawn style things. Not at all. You'll find it all throughout. Next up we have number 8 is Justice, just like it always has been. Now, actually, here on this card, you can see one of the things that a few of my cards actually have this very subtle misprint kind of a thing going on. It almost, I'm not even sure if you'll be able to see it at all in the camera. I can kind of only barely notice it in person. It's really not that distracting, but it almost looks like it's been double exposed, or it's just slightly out of focus or something. You can really tell more so when you try. I don't think it's gonna come across in the camera, but when you look at his signature, it's like it's just doubled. Looks like it's written right on top of each other twice, and the whole thing is sort of true of the entire image. I only have this problem on a handful of cards, and it's only in the majors and the courts. I feel like it probably has something to do with the gold background and how they had to go about printing that. And I know that this subtle little misprint is not in every edition of the deck. It really doesn't bother me that much. I didn't even notice it the first time I went through when I first got it. But yeah, it doesn't make anything too hard to see. Some of the finer detailing is just a little bit blurred. That's really it. Isn't that a beautiful Justice though? Check her out. This, I think, up here and the two suns and stuff is a little throwback to one of Bembo's from the Visconti tarots. His Justice card has this charging Amazon warrior. It harkens back to that. Even this rows of like stylized breasts is right out of like the Worth tarot. And Decker talks about a lot of this stuff in the book too. It's juicy. And check out this hermit standing at the sea. Can you see all the little details down there? There's like a little whale or a dolphin. There's ships on the sea. His staff is literally like a blooming flower with snakes winding up his staff there. His lantern there has like 3 colored chambers, and he's rather reminiscent of this old Father Time. You know how you see the hermit card depicted in a lot of old decks. I think he's even pulled in these sort of wheat kind of references that you see often, maybe because of all the Virgo associations from the Golden Dawn and all that. But it's still here. His skirt, is it a skirt? I don't know. It looks like it's made of like golden wheat. Even that little monastery in the back there is like a specific monastery from Greece, or in Greece, where this outfit and the specific hat all sort of come from. It's really amazing. There's references to like actual historic figures from medieval times and historic locations, and like I said before, all these philosophic ideas and things like that expressed throughout. Check out the Wheel of Fortune. He's even got the snakes intertwining up, just like the Worth. Isn't the detail just incredible? And here is 11. He calls it Force here. There's even this little, she's doing very classic strength things here with the male lion holding the lion's mouth open. But there's this cool little, like, naked male solar force. Decker in the book, I think, calls it Apollo with his lyre and solar rays. Yeah, the Hanged Man here really reminds me of Worth's Hanged Man. I love it. He's got the gold and silver coins falling out of his shirt. I like what Scapini's done here with the grape clusters. There's 6 on each, totaling 12. I even think it's cool how he's added this whirlpool down underneath. Can you guys see that? It's water under his head. So you see what I mean, though, about the Hebrew associations being workable either way. Whether you look at this as lamed or mem, water, maybe that's why he added the water for the Golden Dawn connection down there. There's even a multitude of wonderful, like, alchemical animals down here. Like, there's an Ouroboros eating his tail. There's a pelican cutting itself to nourish its young, and all these sort of Christ-like references. I'm not going to go on and on, but oh, it's good. Down here you even see Luigi Scapini himself, or his severed head down in the corner there. You have the raven swooping, and even the hands back here coming up. They're all... most of them, nope, I think they all are forming a Buddhist, like a mudra, the hand formations. So look at, that's his scythe. It looks like a backbone. Isn't that a beautiful death card? And still that gold is all super reflective and gorgeous. That reflective gold paint is all along the borders and stuff here too. Isn't that nuts? He has chosen to, you know, put the name Death on the 13 card. Here is our beautiful Temperance card. Oh my god. Super Visconti, right? The outfit, like, oh my god. Could go right into the deck seamlessly, I feel like. This even is, the first time you ever see that on a Temperance card is from an Atella card, where she's balancing on one foot on a sphere and the other foot on something angular, like a rectangle or square or whatever. The silver and the golden cups. This one's in the shape of a moon. The silver, the gold is in the shape of a lion, I believe. And then here in the Devil, you of course have that classic Worth style, like goat's head. And it's it's really a classic looking devil still. Just really done up. The color symbolism is amazing. The cohesion of the elements in the Devil is very clear. The male and female. And even the erotic looking sort of way that they're dancing and looking up at the Devil, I just so admire. It's a beautiful card. Oh, here's another gorgeous, the Falling Tower he's chosen to go with here. Again, I just love, you still have so much classic Marseille, classic tarot stuff. The lightning coming from the sun, the top of the tower falling off, and people falling from the tower under the rubble. Even the tower itself is really fascinating. I think at every different level you get like a different style of architecture. You know, you have the Greek, you have the Roman, you have these Middle Ages and Renaissance looking style all built into it there. And then, you know, after the tower erupts and falls, there's all sorts of, besides the two figures you have here. This one, by the way, is it really looks to be in the shape of Ayin, the Hebrew letter that Levi would associate with this card. But also, take a close look here. You see him there? Look just above him and to the left there. There is what very clearly looks like a traffic light. Can you see that right there? There it is. And there's all sorts of other cool little shits falling there. And you find that kind of thing throughout the deck, actually. These really fun little pops of, like, modern things. Modern minutia mixed in with this very medieval feeling artwork. It's really quite fun to kind of play Where's Waldo with one of these things is not like the other. That's the tower. And on to one of my favorite star cards of all time. You guys, check this out. I love how he's given her this awkward, odd kind of a shape that you really do see in a lot of old decks, especially old Marseille decks. The woman on the star card is always nude, but to me very oddly shaped, and he's represented her here like that in a really cool way, I think. He even, I feel like, utilizes hair in an interesting way, and Decker talks about this in the book, and I always love that. How, in The Hanged Man, I felt like I saw it too, but here her hair, you know, these emanations of her head, your hair, is what's just touching, just grazing the earth here. Also, in the background of this card here, you have the beautiful 8-pointed star surrounded by the classic 7 planets. They're a little hard to see, but they're all there. And then this other little feature that I just adore, probably because it actually reminds me of like the Strength card in the, what's it called, in the Masonic Tarot that I have a review up of. If you remember, in that deck we talked about the different columns, the different style columns in the background of that deck. And it's basically has to do with these two styles of vases also, the Doric and the Ionic ones. So that's kind of a cool reference to have there. And Even in Living the Tarot, we talked about what pouring out from the two different vases has to do with, like the different courses of action. The more feminine pouring out over here, and the more masculine, straightforward course over here. There's even a beautiful raven, a symbol of the soul, you could say, perched atop a red rose. And then even down here, this is super cute, where he's where he's placed his signature here. It looks like a little paper boat set upon the sea. Yeah, she's just amazing and so peaceful and so wise. I love that star card. And then here is my moon card. This is actually the card that I noticed that little, the misprint on the most. The image just doesn't look super, super crisp, at least when you look at it in person. But it's still very easy to see what's going on. You have, instead of like a dog and a wolf, you still have like a really freaky looking gray wolf, actually. And then a much more Egyptian looking stylized jackal. Maybe Anubis, the judger of the dead. And then you still have your crayfish, the two towers, the beautiful moon, probably even an eclipse up here, and the yods falling. You even have, can you see him up there? All these astrological references, like there's an astrologer, it looks like, over here, maybe a telescope up there. And all of this is just so reminiscent of those old Marseille-style moon cards. Where it's like astrologers and stuff. So good. Here is one of the most beautiful sun cards you will ever see in your life. Check out this horsey. And the two beautiful, very muscular children. Like, it's stunning. The color of the sun, I don't think it's coming across as beautiful as it looks in person. It's like bright yellow and orangey red. Even the mane of the horse and the children's hair is this bright golden blonde. It is absolutely gorgeous. So you actually do have a little boy and a little girl here. She's a little girl. She's holding a distaff. And the little boy is supposed to be Hercules or Heracles. You have that classic brick wall, again, behind them. They're standing in this ring of flowering growth. There's a little lyre on one side and a broken eggshell on the other. Isn't the symbolism phenomenal? All right, here is our Judgment card, number 20. How gorgeous. So three figures rising, the one in the center sort of being prayed to or worshipped, and your glorious angel just sounding the trumpet. Here on Judgment Day, you are reborn into your new everlasting body. I even like how Scapini, for both his angels, the Temperance Angel and this Judgment Angel here, he's given them like swan's wings, which is a really cool kind of way to go. Swans, especially in things like alchemy, tend to represent initiation itself. So it's, it just works. And lastly for the majors, here is the World card, number 21. Zoom in a bit here. You still have your four fixed signs of the zodiac, the tetramorph, your eagle, your angel, your winged lion, and your winged ox. She's still standing in nude with two wands and a wreath with like roses on it, like you see in the Marseille. Earth, air, fire, water, all depicted here. It even looks like there's an Ouroboros or a snake winding its way through the wreath. Just a beautiful, classic-looking World card. Isn't that gorgeous?